Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. I had just wrapped up a long shift at the diner, the kind of night where the cold air makes your skin sting and the sky sinks into that eerie purple before full darkness. The streets were nearly empty, just a few cars flashing past on their way home. The stillness felt unnatural, like the world had paused. As I stepped into the parking lot with my keys ready, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. A man was standing at the far edge, leaning against a rusted fence near the tree line. His jacket was zipped up, hands buried deep in his pockets. I didn't think much of it at first. People sometimes loitered out there, either waiting for someone or wasting time. I turned my attention back to my car, unlocking it, but something tugged at my thoughts. I glanced back. He was still there. Watching me. Not just looking, but watching, like he had been waiting for me to notice. His stare was icy, intense, and deeply unsettling. It felt like he wasn't just looking at me but into me. Trying to shake it off, I got into the car quickly. The street lights above flickered as I started the engine. But just before I pulled out, I turned my head and nearly screamed. He was right next to my window, face inches from the glass. I hadn't seen him move. There hadn't been a sound. It was like he had just appeared there. He leaned in closer, his lips barely moving as he mouthed something. I could read it clearly. "Can you help me? I just need your phone." Then he reached for the handle. My heart exploded in panic. I was grateful I had locked the doors. Without thinking, I slammed the car into reverse. Tires screeched as I backed out too fast. My hand shook on the wheel, chest tight with fear. In the rearview mirror, I saw him still standing there. Perfectly still. No reaction. Just staring as I sped away. I didn't stop until I reached home. I locked every door and turned on every light. The image of his eyes wouldn't leave me. The next morning, the radio reported a man had been caught near the diner. He had a record of stalking and violence. Police said he had been seen lurking around before. They never confirmed if it was the same man. But I never went back to work at night again. Stay aware. Trust your instincts. Sometimes silence hides something dangerous. Back when I was still in my late teens, I had a casual thing going on with this guy named Alex. He never treated it seriously. He would only message me late at night, usually after midnight, like I was just something to pass the time. It was never real to me, just a hookup. One night, during one of our conversations, he asked me if I wanted to be his girl. Only, the way he said it was, "Do you want to be my bitch?" I brushed it off, thinking it was some kind of joke, or maybe he was trying to be clever about being friends with benefits. Either way, it didn't feel like a serious offer. Not long after, I entered a real relationship with someone else. That's when Alex started blowing up my messages on Instagram. I finally opened them and he asked why I wanted to add him on Snapchat. I told him the truth, that I was in a committed relationship. He responded like I had broken some kind of promise. He said I was supposed to be his girl, that we were meant to be together. I reminded him that nothing about what we had felt like a relationship. The only times he ever messaged me were when he was bored or wanted sex. I'd come over, we'd hook up, and then he'd jump back on his games while I sat there alone. He insisted I was still his, no matter who I was with. He told me to hit him up once my relationship ended. I didn't answer. I left him on read and moved on. 2 years passed. I stayed with the same guy and we got engaged. But eventually, we realized it wasn't working out and agreed to end things. That same day, we both changed our relationship statuses. Not even a few hours later, I got a friend request from Alex. On Facebook and Snapchat. I talked it over with my sisters and they encouraged me to hear him out. So I added him. At first, the conversation was normal. "How have you been? What's new?" That kind of thing. But then it took a turn. He admitted he had been stalking my accounts for the past 2 years. Said he was obsessed. Said he should have gotten me pregnant so I wouldn't have been able to leave. I started feeling sick. He still knew where I lived. A few days later, he sent a picture of himself in his car with the message, "I'm coming over." I told him not to. I made up some excuse about the house being messy. Thankfully, he said he'd wait. That night, I fell asleep with the lights on. I usually sleep heavy, but something woke me. I felt someone's hands on me. I froze. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. My sister was heading to the bathroom, and just like that, whoever it was ran out the back door. That door leads straight outside. I know people will ask why I didn't just block him sooner. But it wasn't that simple. He knew my house. He knew how to get in. And one of our sliding doors doesn't lock. I was scared that blocking him would trigger something worse. Eventually, I blocked him anyway. I wanted peace. I tried to move on. I started a new relationship and tried to forget. But he never stopped. He started making fake profiles. Adding me with blank accounts at first, and then using pictures of other people. He even added my friends so I'd be more likely to accept. Now it feels like every day there's another fake account. He's everywhere. I'm seriously considering getting a no-contact order. Some people might not think it's that scary. But when someone refuses to let go and knows exactly where you live, it's terrifying. I grew up in a small town tucked deep in western North Carolina. Lived there my whole life. For a while, I worked at one of the two Bojangles in town. If you've never been to one, just picture a cheaper version of KFC with less flavor and fewer choices. Fried chicken, biscuits, mashed potatoes, and maybe some green beans. That was it. The food wasn't great, but I stayed for the people. The staff made it worth it, and I actually enjoyed going in every day. About 2 weeks ago, things started to feel off. We had regulars who came in weekly, sometimes daily. Most of them were sweet. Some just liked to talk more than they liked the food. But mixed in with the friendly faces, there were always the creepy ones. People who were clearly not all there, either strung out or just unstable. Normally, we'd give them a warning. If they didn't cut it out, we'd call the cops and they'd usually leave. But then came the man in the purple jacket. That's what we ended up calling him. He hadn't come in while I was working before, but apparently, on my days off, he showed up a lot. He started asking when I'd be back. Sometimes every day. He even called the store to ask if I was there and would get angry when told I wasn't. One day, he started standing outside the store for hours. He'd smoke what we thought were cigarettes, but they smelled strange. Turned out they were joints. My manager told him to stop, and he said he had PTSD and needed it to calm down. She told him to at least go behind the dumpster and clean up after himself. He mumbled something and walked off. Later that evening, he walked up to the window and pointed his phone inside, like he was filming. I told my manager, but by the time we checked, he had disappeared. It was getting late. I was in the back washing dishes. My manager was finishing paperwork, and my boyfriend was out front in his truck waiting to drive me home. Around closing time, I heard the door open. I came out to the front, put on my usual smile, and there he was. The man in the purple jacket. He had wide green eyes and a strange, silent grin. He wore black skinny jeans with chains, red Converse, and that oversized purple windbreaker. A silver chain with a small cross hung around his neck, and a single AirPod sat in his ear. He didn't say anything right away. He just stared at me with that grin, eyes locked onto mine. Then he slid one hand into his pocket. My stomach dropped. I froze. After a long pause, he spoke. His voice was low, gravelly, and hard to describe. He said, "You're even more beautiful up close. I've waited so long for this." He pulled his hand from his pocket and placed a small envelope on the counter. Then, without another word, he gave me one last look and walked out the door. My knees gave out. I fell to the floor crying, unable to speak. My manager rushed over. I pointed to the envelope. She opened it and dumped out the contents. My breath caught. Inside was a sapphire ring with 2 small diamonds, a butterfly necklace, a black headband, gray underwear, sweet watermelon chapstick, and bubblegum lip gloss. None of these were random. Every single one had gone missing from the apartment I shared with my boyfriend. Over the last couple weeks, I had noticed things disappearing. Now they were sitting right in front of me. There was also a note. It read, "Your pillow smells like the ocean. Your blankets smell like coconut. Did you know you talk in your sleep?" My manager ran outside and got my boyfriend. He walked me to the truck, and we drove straight to my mom's house. The next day, my boyfriend went back to the apartment to get our clothes and essentials. We stayed with friends while searching for a new place. I quit my job on the spot and started working with my mom in the next town. Things felt better for a while. Until we returned to collect the furniture. Our dishes had been smashed. Couch cushions ripped open and thrown everywhere. And written across the wall, over and over, were the words, "I miss your skin." We left everything behind. The only thing we took was an old air mattress from the back of the closet. We turned in the keys and never looked back. Since then, we've gotten 3 dogs. Every bark makes my chest tighten. Every shadow feels like a threat. We never open the blinds. Our bed sits flat on the floor. I don't go anywhere alone. A few days ago, we found out he had been arrested. He tried to break into Bojangles at 4 in the morning. When the police caught him, he admitted everything. He confessed to breaking into our home and stealing from us. They found more of my underwear. One of my bras. A dress. My old phone, filled with photos of me. Pictures taken while I was in the shower, doing dishes, or sleeping next to my boyfriend. That man had been watching me for weeks. Maybe longer. Total psycho. I was between homes at the time, trying to figure out my next steps, when I got an invitation to stay with a step-family member who lived overseas. I hesitated, but I also didn't want to overstay my welcome with the friend I was temporarily staying with. So with caution, I accepted the offer and booked a long flight out to see him and his fiancée. It felt like a chance to clear my head after a painful breakup. The place was warm and peaceful, and at first, it felt like exactly what I needed. But within days of being there, things started to feel strange. Mike, the step-family member I was staying with, began opening up to me about how unhappy he was in his relationship. He said he felt trapped, financially burdened, and unable to enjoy life because his partner never wanted to go out. He suggested that while I was visiting, he could finally go out without guilt. We went out one night and had a decent time. I met some locals, had a few drinks, and thought nothing of it. The next morning, he sat on the sofa, sulking. He told me his fiancée had taken the car and stormed off because we had gone out together. Then he said something that instantly made me uncomfortable. He claimed I had walked into the bathroom naked the night before. I knew for a fact I hadn't. I never sleep without clothes. I dismissed it as a weird joke. But little things started to build. I was told I couldn't go anywhere alone, not even to the beach. He said there were no taxis, and I'd need to be driven. Later, I found out that was a lie. The beach was much farther than I'd been told, and I was also kept unaware that there was a shop right next door. It felt like I was being isolated. Even more unsettling, I caught him staring at my chest almost every time we talked, despite my efforts to dress modestly. He kept complaining about his partner, and it started to feel like he was trying to create tension between us. One morning, while I was making coffee, I heard him ask me to make one for him too, even though he had always claimed to hate coffee. I turned around and saw him standing there in nothing but a towel. Before I could react, he dropped it slightly, exposing himself. I froze. I turned away and shouted, asking him what the hell he was doing. He claimed it was an accident. I didn't believe him. This moment hit hard. His father had been abusive and manipulative, and I had grown up in that household. I had thought Mike was nothing like him. I was wrong. Later that week, he showed me the shop next door and introduced me to a kind woman who offered to take me into the town and show me around. I agreed and got ready for the night out. But once I arrived in town, something felt off, and I decided to head back early. I returned quietly around the time most people were still out. When I got in, the place was dark and quiet. My air conditioning remote was missing, and the fan was off, so I went to bed in the heat. Around midnight, I got up to use the bathroom. When I turned on the light, I saw my bra and underwear placed out on the living room floor. My suitcase had been opened. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my things and returned to my room in silence. Not long after, I heard tapping at my door. It was Mike, whispering, asking if I was back. I answered, and he walked in, wearing nothing but boxers, saying his fiancée had left and now we could be alone. I jumped out of bed, went into the front room, and tried to redirect the conversation. He asked what time I got in and why I hadn't let him know. I told him I had messaged and didn't want to wake anyone. When I said I hadn't been drinking, he seemed disappointed and pushed me to have a drink with him anyway. Eventually, his fiancée returned and sat outside, refusing to speak to me. I tried to check on her and was ignored. The next day, the cold shoulder continued. Still feeling the effects of the alcohol from earlier, I finally snapped and told her I wouldn't tolerate the childish attitude anymore. Surprisingly, things calmed down after that. They even invited me to stay longer, but I used the excuse of needing a hotel for visa documentation. Getting that space was a relief. But that night, while I was alone on the balcony of my hotel, I felt something was off. I turned off the light and looked down. Someone was there. Moments later, I saw Mike walk out from beneath the building and down the road, like nothing had happened. He didn't know I saw him. That was it for me. I went quiet. No more arguments. Just distance. I stayed polite and out of the way. Then came the final blow. Another family member messaged me screenshots of Mike spreading lies, saying I had destroyed his relationship, that his partner was afraid of me, even that I had been arrested. None of it was true. I held my silence until I got home. Safe with my family, I finally told them everything. The stories Mike tried to spread were laughable compared to the truth. When I packed to leave, Mike conveniently couldn't find one of my expensive sneakers. Of course. I had a spare pair and didn't even react. Since then, he's been cut from my life entirely. It took a long time, but I'm proud of how much I've grown. I trusted my instincts, even when it felt like no one else might believe me. To anyone reading this, please be careful. Even people you think you know well can hide deeply disturbing intentions. If something feels off, trust your gut. Stay safe. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.